Carla's had one, so we're still on our cautious side. You got another week yet, okay? So we're moving along. I'm feeling a little easier about being out and about, but this is the COVID vaccination is not a new thing to us. We've traveled globally a lot in our lifetime, and I think we carry every known disease already in our bodies, and we've been vaccinated for everything I think there is out there. Some of it may have worn off by now, I'm not sure. Of course, the medical world doesn't know either. They're still guessing about a lot of things. And someone was saying, I just heard that the Pfizer vaccination doesn't last more than 6 months. And I said, that's because we've only had it 6 months on everybody, you know. we don't know, you know. They're going, how do we? But we're people who know everything. If not, maybe. Well, I am grateful for Solomon, for his heart to want to follow God, and that his pursuit was not power or wealth, but he just wanted to be a ruler that honored God among his people. And God blessed him with all of this insight, this wisdom that we're reading about in Proverbs. So this is new, in one sense, to us every time we come to it. You know, there was a time in my life, I've always enjoyed the mountains a lot, and I've always enjoyed digging around in the dirt looking for crystals and things like that, and sometimes in hopes that maybe I'd find something that glitters that's gold, yellow colored, you know. And I found some once and then discovered that it was mica, and then they call that false gold. But anyway, I've always been looking, and I've been thinking about how reading Proverbs isn't unlike taking a pan and going and putting gravel in it and sifting it in water, and the heavy stuff, the gold, goes to the bottom, and you get rid of the gravel, and there's the gold, the truth that's there. And Proverbs is like that in my head, that I've got, there's gold nuggets, and it's in here, and we're shifting it, and that gold is all surfacing, but it's all gold in Proverbs. And we're from chapters 10 through 21, I think there's like 375 proverbs or nuggets of truth for us to contemplate, to reflect on, to see, understand ways and how do we apply that truth and how we live our daily life. I noticed, it just came to my attention, it's been there all the time obviously, but it just came to my attention this last week as I was reading back through some of these, the Proverbs here, that these are not commands, and they're not direction. The Proverbs don't tell us what to do. They describe life and interaction. They describe life as you live it. But in every one of those Proverbs is a description of what is true in life. But it's a description, and so we read the description and say, okay, I see in this kind of relationship between, you know, what is wicked and what is righteous in this context. Now I got the truth. Now I have to, in my own mind and heart, apply that truth. It doesn't tell me what to do. And so I think that's part of Solomon's, even God's perspective in presenting us the Proverbs, is to cause us to interact with the truth and not just simply salute it, but to allow it. That's why Solomon calls his son to seek knowledge, gain understanding, and have wisdom to live life. And so, given the desire to know and understand and seek wisdom, I'm going to give you all the nuggets of truth that there are that you can process and apply through your knowledge and understanding. And so I'm going, this is pretty cool, but it puts work on our part. But actually what it does is it engages us with the truth personally. And so that's part of what I wanted to just bring to your attention today, is we're reading through some more of the parables that what we're picking up is nuggets of truth that we're going to learn how to apply and use in our life. And I think I noted last time I was with you that in chapters 1 through 9, the contrast that was depicted in the teaching that was there was between those who were wise and those who were foolish. And beginning in chapter 10, the contrast changed, and the contrast now is between the righteous and the wicked. But as I'm looking at the descriptions of the wise and the foolish and the descriptions of the righteous and the wicked, there's parallels. The wise are the righteous, and the foolish are the wicked. As you look at the descriptions of behavior and what happens in their life and the truth that we're left with, so we find that foolishness and wickedness walk the same path, and wisdom and righteousness walk the same path. And so today in chapter 12, we're going to find the contrast between the righteous and the wicked is more pronounced, it's more defined. And so what I'm going to ask is that as we read through this, that you would be looking, what is it that is righteous and what is it that is wicked? What is the contrast that's being described here? And to reflect on how do I apply that in the various situations of my life. And some of them won't make any sense to you today, but if you just hang on to that nugget, there's going to be a day when you can cash it in. There's going to be a day when you're going to be glad you had that nugget, you had that little bit of truth that protects you from some of the consequences that are also described here. At the bottom of your note page there, I have, it's on the first page of the notes, there are character traits that in chapter 6, we made a list. These were the character traits of those that are wise. And among them here was honesty, humility, integrity, blameless, living a good life, no one can blame, tangibly caring for other people. I was looking for a single word that reflected that phrase. Well, my brain couldn't come up with it. But it's compassionate, but it's the tangible side of that. It's more than I just care about you. I'm engaged with you. I'm here to help you and assist you, provide for you. But that's a characteristic of a wise person, caring tangibly about other people, building them up, encouraging them, wisdom, kindness, generosity. And I've added 2 since the time we were in chapter 6, and that is faith and diligence. So just a list of, these are personal characteristics that mark the person who is wise and also mark the person who is righteous. And in contrast to those, I've created a list here for you on the right side there called the traits of the wicked. And these are all going to come out of what we read today. So you'll see them as they come, you'll recognize as they come. But in contrast to honesty, we find the traits of the foolish or the wicked are lies, deceit, falsehood. The contrast to humility is pride, self-promotion, and I'm right. The opposite of an integrity is that we pretend. I seem to be something, but I'm not. I pretend. That's the trait of the wicked, in contrast to the person of integrity, who is who they are. They live and they speak who they are. The blameless and the corrupt, tangibly caring or being hurtful and cruel, building others up or humiliating others. Wisdom or foolishness, thoughtfulness, thoughtlessness as it comes out. Kindness or impulsive, self-impulsive. Generosity or being a taker or thief. Faith or godless. Diligent or lazy. So you just see these are traits of all the gold that we're finding in these parables. I'm trying to lift out what keeps surfacing to the top that's not 375 thoughts, ideas, but what are some characteristics and traits that can be measures for me in my life? Where am I in my walk with God? You know, when I say something that is really proud, I say something that is really hurtful to somebody else, thoughtless, I'm going, God, I don't want that in my life. Help me. What is my perspective that got me in the wrong place? And that was typically, it kind of boils down to, I find my mind, my head focused in myself and not in focus in the Lord or in the people around me. It has everything to do with my personal life focus. And the corruptness that's in our world today is all generated from a heart that's focused in itself. Its reputation, what it can gather, its power, its clout, its possessions, its ownership. It's all self-oriented. And I said, somewhere in all of this, I understand the words of Jesus when he said, you want to be my disciple? Deny yourself. Take up your cross daily, die daily, and just follow me. That's a disciple of Jesus. And I said, so can I learn from that and from these proverbs that the wicked man is all about himself. The righteous man is about God and the people around him. If you keep your head and your focus, and you see that surface in the parables that we're reading. So let's get going into the chapter 1 here, or chapter 12, verse 1. Also note that in every one of these parables, there's a word that's in common in every parable, and it's but. There's a statement of truth, and then there's but, and then there's the contrast. And every parable has a but in it. Okay. So in chapter 12, verse 1, it says, whoever loves discipline loves knowledge, but he who hates correction is stupid. Now, I was always told that you're not supposed to use the word stupid. You know, find another word. Just don't call somebody stupid. That's gross. But here I am, I'm finding it in Scripture. And just out of curiosity, I did a search for the word stupid, and I found it 12 times in the Scriptures. But I also went back and it says, so what is the word, what is the Hebrew word that's being translated stupid here? And the word is literally beast. Animal. That you think and act like an animal and not like a human being. And he's stupid. I said, in the Latin culture, you know, someone who is stupid is el burro, is the donkey, you know. But it'd be akin to the idea that's here. He's a beast that doesn't reason, doesn't think, can't reflect. So he's saying that the person who hates correction is a beast. Is like a beast. He's thinking like an animal, not thinking like a human being. And another thing that was helpful to me here is just to look at the word, whoever loves discipline loves knowledge. And when I first saw the word discipline, I was thinking in terms of that which is self-control. You know, I'm going to discipline my life. I'm disciplined in how I eat. I'm disciplined in my exercise. I'm disciplined. That's how I saw the word discipline, but that's not the word that's here. The word discipline that's here is correction, as it reflects in the second part of the verse. But whoever loves being corrected loves knowledge, it says. And I said the person who is open and welcomes correction is the person who's going to learn. I'd have to say that the vast majority of things I've learned in life, I've learned in discovering the opposite of what I was thinking, you know, or that my behavior was not appropriate in a given situation, and someone corrected me on that, and I learned from it, and consequently my behavior patterns changed. But there's a broader picture in this, is that the person who's willing to learn and learn through being corrected is the one who's going to not only gain knowledge, but love the knowledge that he's gained. Whoever loves discipline loves knowledge, but he who hates correction is a thoughtless animal. Now, they didn't tell me what to do, but it gave me a nugget of truth. Discipline is a good thing. Welcome it. That's what I learned from that. Welcome the discipline that comes. Don't defend yourself. Don't rationalize what's going on. I have a phrase that I created for myself, and that is that when someone accuses me or attacks me or corrects me, in my brain, I don't do it out loud, but in my brain, I say, forget who said it, listen to what was said, and weigh it. Is it true or is it not true? If it's not true, dismiss it. If it is true, act on it. But don't hold it against somebody or find myself in a posture of defensiveness to something that's in opposition to me, but rather to learn from it. And I found that helpful in living out the life. But so this was the first principle that comes off the top of chapter 12. Solomon keeps coming back to this. It's knowledge, it's understanding, it's wisdom. This is life. It will produce life, and without it, it produces death. That's simplicity throughout the whole writing of the Proverbs. So I come down to this. Welcome discipline. And then I had a passage here, and I put it in your notes, and that's in Hebrews chapter 12, verse 5. It's always been helpful to me. My son, do not make light of the Lord's discipline, his correction, and do not lose heart when he rebukes you, because the Lord disciplines those he loves, and he punishes everyone he accepts as a son or daughter. Endure hardship as discipline. God is treating you as sons, as his own kids. For what son is not disciplined by his father? If you are not disciplined, and everyone undergoes discipline, then you are an illegitimate child and not true sons. Moreover, we have had all human fathers who have disciplined us, and we respected them for it. How much more should we submit to the Father of our spirits and live? Submit to God in his correction. Our fathers disciplined us for a little while they thought it best. But God disciplines us for our good, that we may share in his holiness. Spiritually, we're molded and shaped by God's discipline. So it's not to resist it, not to fight it, but to learn from it. And to practice what you learn. Verse 2, second principle that precedes all of the parables that come on this, and that is a good man obtains favor from the Lord, but the Lord condemns a crafty man. A crafty man is one who contrives, plots, devises, devious. So those would be opposites of good. Good man finds favor, but the one who's crafty, who contrives, who plots, who's devious, who's dishonest, he's not a good man, but a bad man. So, but God, the good man who is honest, who doesn't contrive, who is sincere, who is straightforward, who has integrity, he obtains favor from God. So that tells me in principle there are two things that are important. Be a learner, receive discipline. Be honest, be transparent, be responsive. Now let's listen to the nuggets of truth that follow. And we find in this passage, particularly verses 3 through 12 in chapter 12, we find a distinct contrast between the righteous and the wicked. And so I'm given pictures of what is a good thing to do and what is something I don't want to do, I want to avoid. And these are various pictures that are here. The first one in verse 3 is, man cannot be established through wickedness, but the righteous cannot be uprooted. What's the principle? The wicked are always unstable. They're looking to find firm ground in their own initiative, in their own clout, their own power, their own ego. They're looking to establish themselves, but they will never be established. They will always be unstable because they cannot be established. They're moving from a wrong heart. They're moving from their wickedness, their selfishness. But the righteous cannot be uprooted. The one who's honest, who's transparent, regardless of what accusations may come to him, he's blameless. He's guarding his heart, and the integrity of his heart and his life and relationships and how he lives his life. And I said he's not going to be uprooted because he's grounded. I was thinking of the passage in Matthew, and the wise man that built his house upon the rock, and the foolish man who built his house upon the sand. And when the storm came, the foundation of the one on sand collapsed, the foolish man. And the wise man was built on the rock, and the storms came and the house stood. And he said, so what's the difference between the wise and the foolish man in Matthew? There it says that the wise man listened to God's word and acted on it. But the foolish man heard God's word but ignored it. And so I'm coming down here and I'm looking at verse 3. A man cannot be established through wickedness, through his self-centeredness, but the righteous cannot be uprooted because his confidence and trust is in what God has said and his belief in what God says. Verse 4. A wife of noble character is her husband's crown, but a disgraceful wife is like decay in his bones. Solomon, we're going to find another one down the line here, in that a complaining wife is like a constant dripping from a leaky roof. Or, you know, I don't know what kind of relationship he had here with women in his life. He had way too many women in his life. That was part of the problem. But I've been looking at this. What is noble character? And I said, well, you can come to my house and you can meet the woman that lives with me. She's a woman of noble character. She could be feisty at times. But she speaks the truth. And she's at ease in speaking what is true. And what she speaks and what she professes is consistent in her life. And I would call those noble. I don't know that you've crowned me before with the rolling pin, but I'm teasing. A wife of noble character is her husband's crown. It's his honor. And I'm respected in a lot of places where I speak or where I'm involved with people, groups of people. I feel like I'm welcomed. I feel like I have value with people. But it's become very clear to me in the last half of my life here that a lot of people like me because Carla is with me. And there are times when I may show up without Carla. The first words that come out of people's mouths is, "Where's Carla?" You know, and I just say, that's a wife of noble character who brings honor not only to herself but to her husband, to the world, to the people she's with. A disgraceful wife is like decay in his bones. I don't know what's a disgraceful wife. Maybe the opposite of what I thought of in terms of noble. A noble person is one who's thoughtful, righteous before God. A disgraceful is dishonest, corrupt, unkind, proud. I have observed some relationships that have looked like that, and I felt badly for the husband and for the wife in that context. So that's a thought. Nobility is a high value if it's acknowledged by others and not by you promoting. if you don't promote yourself as being high and mighty and noble, you'll be welcomed. Let's keep moving here. We won't get through this today. Verse 5. The plans of the righteous are just, but the advice of the wicked is deceitful. So someone who tells you, gives you advice, and they do it with ulterior motives. They want to hurt you, or they want to lead you down another path. He said he's a wicked one. His advice is deceitful. I had a hard time connecting the idea of plans and advice, other than that the plans of the righteous are just, but the advice of the wicked is deceitful. I think the contrast implies that the plans are just is because they're honest and not deceitful. I was looking at the word just, and I grew up in the printing business. My dad owned a print shop, and so this is ancient history before computers, and we had letter set type. There was a little piece of metal with a type letter on the top of it, and you'd put all these pieces of metal together at the top of the face. When you put ink on it and press on it, it would give you a page with letters on it, with words. And but there was a word that we used was justified. So you always wanted to make sure that when you put your type together, that it was justified to the right. It was rightly justified. And that meant it was lined up. It was in its place. It was appropriate. And so that's always helped me to understand the word that which is just. It's aligned and it's right. It's in its appropriate place. And so the plans of the righteous have been thoughtful, and they're in a right place. They're just. But the advice of the wicked is going to lead you astray. It's not going to be straight. It's contrived, it's dishonest as to purpose, and its direction or even method of accomplishment. And when it comes to planning, his advice is deceitful. So I want to be careful who I get advice from, and I want to weigh the advice that I get. 6, the words of the wicked lie in wait for blood. The speech of the upright rescues them. What's most helpful to me in viewing this one parable is that the words of the wicked lie in wait for blood. And I'm going, how do you put that together in an imagery, a picture that makes some sense? And it's just this, the words that come out of a wicked man are going to be his death. His words lie out there and are eventually going to be his blood. So they lie in wait for blood, his blood. This relates back to chapter 1, chapter 2 of Proverbs, where it talked about the gangs that were going out and creating havoc for people, and they were murdering, they were doing things. They were setting a trap for somebody, but it was really a trap for themselves. I don't know if you remember our talking about that in chapter 2. And so it's parallel in its thought here. The words of the wicked are going to be his death. It's going to be the shedding of his blood. But the words, the speech of the upright will rescue him, because he has spoken what is true. And that truth will surface, and that truth will reign. Now, they'll be in corrupt situations where truth gets cornered, but eventually that truth is going to surface. Eventually that truth is going to prove itself. So watch your words. Dishonest words will eventually trap you. Speaking the truth will protect you in the long run. And this is the first of several parables that are coming that are related to the speech, to tongue, and to words. We're going to have a couple more parables before we get more about the speech, but those are going to be predominant in this passage. Verse 7, wicked men are overthrown and are no more, but the house of the righteous stands firm. So again, it's almost a repeat of 5, or of 4. Looking back here. In verse 3, a man cannot be established for wickedness, but the righteous cannot be uprooted. And we find here again in 7 that the house of the righteous stands, that there's a foundation that we can rest on in our life in the truth of God's Word. We can rest in these. And we can act on them, depend on them, because they are predictable and they are dependable. A wicked man is overthrown and no more because he's unstable in all his ways. I made a statement here: the wicked may win a battle, but they will not win the war. So I say that only because there are times when I see wickedness in the world around me and in relationships with the people around me. I see wickedness that is there, and it's hurtful to me, to others, to themselves. And they don't see it. And I said, this isn't right. And I have to remember that that will not ultimately win. That he's going to come to recognize his error and his way, and they either die with it or he will be freed from it. He'll be forgiven in it. But the wicked man is overthrown and no more, but the house of the righteous stands firm. Righteousness will always come out on top. And I thought here also, if not here, in heaven. I was thinking of all those who suffered martyrdom in the first generation of believers under the rule of Rome. And how many of those were fed to lions to entertain the crowd? How many of those were put up on poles and covered with tar and lit on fire? How many people were martyred in such cruel ways? And say that didn't win. But the ultimate win for all of us is the fact that this life is not all there is, and we know that. When I was the age of most of you in here, I had a whole life ahead of me. There was no end to it. You know, and I don't regret that at all, that I had that perspective, because I didn't feel constrained by anything. I just go do. You know, it's the right thing to do. Go do it. You know. I love it when a plan comes together, that TV program, the DA team. I love it when a plan comes together. And it says, hey, if I don't have a plan, it'll come together. I live life like that. But I'm now at a point in time in my life when I realize it really is temporary. I mean, I might have another year. I might have another 10. I might even have another 20. Lord, no. But, you know, I'm coming. I know there's an end. But I can look back on all the years that I've had, and it's minimal regret. I have to work at even trying to conjure up something in my head that I would regret. It's been a beautiful life. Grateful to the Lord for it. All of its days, all the relationships, all the things that we achieved. Years we've had together. I'm just really grateful. And I know in the end, it's all going to be better. And more than just the thought of it being better, but I'm going to be in the presence of God, who I can't see now, but I will see. I sense His presence, but I'll be in His presence. You can't beat that. Verse 8, a man is praised according to his wisdom, but men with warped minds are despised, eventually. I sometimes wonder at this statement. There's two things missing in our culture today, maybe more. But integrity means nothing. I can say whatever I want to say, create whatever I want to create, see a situation, promote a situation. Integrity is nothing in our culture today. And the other thing that's missing is common sense. And one thing does dominate, and that is self-focus. The culture I live in today is all about me. And so I look at this and I says, a man is praised according to his wisdom, but men with warped minds are despised. And I said, there are a lot of people out there with warped minds from my perspective. And they certainly aren't despised. They're held up in honor. They're even elected to office. I'm going, Lord, well, even though it often looks like a whole culture is warped, in time, the sense will be praised. Observed enough ups and downs of countries and powers in our world in a lifetime, and you can see that sense does surface. 9, better to be a nobody and yet have a servant than pretend to be somebody and have no food. It's better to have no reputation and have the things of life that are necessities for you in a given thing, but to have what's important for them in that context in life. It's better to be nobody by reputation and have what you need in your life than it is to pretend to be somebody and be nobody and not have any food. So there's some practicalities in life. You know, I need to provide for, I need to provide food and shelter, safety, provide for health, and nurture trust and relationship, and those things are the important things and not reputation. That's what I pulled from this. So don't invest your life to become somebody, because you already are. You're somebody to God. You're a unique creation of God. And don't ever lose track of the fact, for all we understand about the body, human beings, life, all that exists around us, out of 7.5 billion people on this planet, not one is identical. You are uniquely designed by God. I said, don't ever think less of yourself because of what people say or how you think of yourself in that. See yourself as God sees you, His unique creation. 10, a righteous man cares for the needs of his working animal. I added the word working, it says the needs of his animal. But the kindest act of the wicked are cruel. Just drawing a contrast that's there. The one who cares for the needs of what's around him, that he cares for what, like the animal who serves him, he's going to take care of that animal. And I could even exchange that in some words in terms of people. A righteous man cares for the people around him, but the kindest act of the wicked is cruelty. So I ask the question, is it righteousness or wicked? And then I ask the question, is it caring or is it cruel? And that'll tell me what's righteous and what's wicked. 11, he who works his land will have abundant food, but he who chases fantasies lacks judgment. The wicked desire the plunder of evil men, but the root of the righteous flourishes. I said that the needs of those who are responsible and diligent will be abundantly met. I'm responsible and I'm diligent. Thy needs will be met. God's my provider in that. The irresponsible dreamer is short-sighted, lacking good judgment as to what's necessary. The wicked as well want the easy path of taking what belongs to another. That's as they desire the plunder of evil men. I said that, so the wicked are lazy, don't do their own work, but take from other people. And so I'm learning in this, that's not a good value before God. So I want to guard my heart in it. And in verse 13, the tongue is a sequence here. I'm going to move through these a little more rapidly with you. But the tongue exposes the wicked foolish, and it confirms the wise righteous. What comes out of a mouth, in Matthew again, what comes out of the mouth of man proceeds from the heart. So what you are in the heart is what's going to come out of the mouth. Stuff that's coming out of your mouth is not appropriate. It's a reflection of where your heart's at. And when things aren't right in your heart, where you need to be is on your knees before God. Confess to Him what's going on. Ask Him to expose you, reveal to you what's not right in your life. Just find a place of brokenness before God. That's where healing happens. An evil man is trapped by his sinful talk, like the words in verse 6. But a righteous man escapes trouble. Again in verse 6, speech of the upright rescues him. There's a parallel between verse 6 and verse 13. From the fruit of his lips a man is filled with good things, as surely as the work of his hands rewards him. And so the Proverbs of 13, verses 13 and 14 are simply just the comparison here. The man who is diligent in providing for himself and for his family, for his life, he's diligent to be responsible. Will be a man who escapes trouble. And the fruit of his lips will reflect that. The wicked man will be cornered by his own words. The honest, humble, respectful one will have caring words that produce good fruit. Verse 15, the way of a fool seems right to him, but a wise man listens to advice. Implying here that the fool is the one who doesn't listen to anybody else, assumes himself to be right, seems right to him. I don't need to listen to you. A fool doesn't seek advice, but champions his own ignorant way. It's much like a professional politician who depends on his verbal skills of persuasion rather than listening to the counsel of the people around him. A fool shows his annoyance at once, but a prudent man overlooks an insult. Again, it has to do with self-focus. I'm annoyed when you're critical of me because I'm good. You know, I'm in trouble when I take that posture. I'm annoyed at that. I said that only exposes where my heart's at. But a prudent man overlooks an insult. A man who's got some discernment, some thought about it, says, you know, I heard what you said, but it ain't going to take us anywhere if I make an issue of it. So I'm going to let it go. It's your problem, not mine. A truthful witness gives honest testimony, but a false witness tells lies. Pretty obvious. And I ask the question, are my words true or false? Are they honest or dishonest? 18, reckless words pierce like a sword, but the tongue of the wise brings healing. It's just amazing how hurtful words can be. You know, I said, how untrue. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. That's not true. I can't tell you how many times names I've been called have been hurtful. But I said, they're just reckless words pierced like a sword, cutting remark, thoughtless critique. And consider the words in James chapter 3, verse 5, and I put them there in your notes. Likewise, the tongue is a small part of the body, but it makes great boasts. Consider what a great forest it is set on fire by a small spark. The tongue also is a fire, a world of evil among the parts of the body. It corrupts the whole person, sets the whole course of his life on fire, as is itself set on fire by hell. So James, I think, probably read Solomon, probably did this parable. 19, truthful lips endure forever, but a lying tongue lasts only a moment. A lie is good for the moment, and it will soon be revealed, and it will come with pain. But that which is true will remain. Hang with the truth and will outlast the lie. 20, there is deceit in the hearts of those who plot evil, but joy for those who promote peace. The deceitful wicked are never happy. Joy is reserved for the honest promoters of peace. 21 through 23 there, no harm befalls the righteous, but the wicked have their fill of trouble. Again, there's the protection of God in speaking that which is true, honest, caring. Those who are self-focused, filled with their own wickedness, will always have trouble. 22, the Lord detests lying lips, but he delights in men who are truthful. 23, prudent man keeps his knowledge to himself, but the heart of fools blurts out folly. Be thoughtful in the things that you say, when you express them and how you express them. The wicked and the foolish have nothing but trouble, and they find that God is against them. The righteous, the honest, the humble guard their tongue and find themselves protected by God. Summary thoughts, that 24 through 28 are just a summary of key thoughts that are expressed in all the parables that preceded this here in chapter 12. First is a diligent hand will rule, but laziness ends up in slave labor. Be diligent with your life. An anxious heart weighs a man down, but a kind word cheers him up. Be a person of encouragement. A righteous man is cautious in friendship, but the way of the wicked leads them astray.